So please join me in welcoming and congratulating director Warwick Thornton.
Thank you. Sorry for tormenting the hell out of you.
Thank you so much for allowing us to present this film here in Toronto. I think it's one of the most important films of the year. Awesome. Hey. It's so rich and about so many things. So that's one of the first things I'd like to ask you about is the genesis of the actual narrative. How this came to you and how long you worked on putting it together.
This is actually the first film I didn't write. I generally, I try and write everything, but sometimes you can't write everything, and sometimes you realise you're a bad writer. So, a good friend of mine, David Tranter, who's actually backstage, but he doesn't like to talk. Who's a sound recordist, came up to me on another film, and we've known each other since we were 6. And he came up to me on another film, and in that kind of classic film set way, that someone comes up to you and says, "I've got an idea for a film," and you're being a bit dismissive of it. It's like, "Okay, David, go and write it, and then we'll talk." So he did. And it's based on his grandfather. Philomac, the child in the film, is actually his real grandfather. So it's based on a true story. And I think that first draft that David wrote was terrible. And then he got another Aboriginal writer named Stephen McGregor involved, and they polished it up. And pretty well June, July last year, I read it for the first time. So it's, it's been basically 12 months since, and just going, oh my God, I'm complete page turner, and going, awesome,
So only 12 months, essentially, like,
yep.
It feels like it happened so quickly.
Yeah, well, I didn't write it. See, there might have been, I don't know how long, I think it would have been about 3 years worth of writing.
Wow.
But, so I sort of just rocked up and stole it, and now it's a film by Warwick Thornton. Whatever the hell that means.
Well,
the vanity credit, how embarrassing. But Warwick, you can help sell the movie.
Okay, so you also have a remarkable cast here in this film. Can you talk a bit about in what order they came onto the project, how you found the right actors?
It started with Bryan Brown. He was instantly, I'd worked with him before on another movie, and so it started with him, and then Sam came along. And I didn't realise, I knew they'd worked together before, but I didn't realise that they actually spent a lot of time together. And they're like the two grumpy old men up in the, the Muppets, the two Muppets that sit up there. So they come on, and we do a little bit of rehearsing and whatnot, but they come on set and they completely set me up and have this huge argument in front of me. And they're teasing the shit out of each other, you know what I mean? And I didn't realise they were that close. They're best friends, and they've been for a very, very long time. But they set it up to freak the hell out of me. Day one, literally shot one. This huge Barney, and he's going, I can't work with that wanker. And he's like, he's a dickhead, he's a fraud, he can't do his job properly. You know what I mean? And that happened in front of me. So they completely set me up, and I went pale and nearly fainted on the first shot.
What did you do?
Hey?
I mean, what did you do?
Oh, I just wanted to crawl up a little ball and make them go away. But then they laughed at me and said, ha, sucked in, and we started making the movie.
And went on from there.
Yeah, absolutely, and we're fantastic. And Hamilton and Natassia and the little boy in it is actually twins. There's two twins, Tremaine and Trevon, and that was an awesome discovery because we went to an Indigenous school in Alice Springs, a primary school, and seen one of them and said, oh my God, he looks amazing. And then the other one walked around the corner and was like, what? And the really freaky thing about those two kids is that one's an absolute extrovert and the other one's an absolute introvert. So whenever he's stealing anything, we use the extrovert. And whenever he's getting in trouble, we use the introvert.
That
That
is
worked
genius.
perfect, yeah.
That's remarkable.
Yeah,
Because that would be the next question is, but do they have the same acting abilities?
Yeah, yeah. Well, yeah, not really, no, but yeah. One's good at stealing and one's good at getting beaten up, you know, by old men, you know, so.
Okay,
Yeah.
that's skill as a director, knowing those things for sure.
It's, well, you just sort of discover it's not a plan, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? But you recognise that, oh my God, that one's running around and that one's sitting there, you know, that kind of, yeah.
And so, did you shoot near Alice Springs?
Yeah,
or-
yeah. We had a, you know, it was a small budget film, so we kind of had to draw a line around Alice Springs, which was about 30 kilometres we were allowed to leave town, just literally financially. And, you know, it's incredible locations just in
Yes.
in the 20, 30 kilometres outside of town in all the different directions.
Yes.
It was, you know, it's because if we went 100 kilometres out of town, it means we get less shots done that day, less
Right.
scenes, because it takes so long, just the time travel,
Yeah.
that kind of thing. So, but yeah, it was shot in Alice Springs, except the Salt Lake was shot in South Australia. Yeah.
To me, it's one of the most visually poetic films of the year. I don't know if people know that you're one of the most esteemed cinematographers in the world.
You've got to get it where you can.
And
Sadly, I don't shoot very much anymore because nobody wants a director of photography who thinks they can direct. So,
it's true, you kind of boxed yourself into a corner there.
yeah, absolutely.
But your eye and your skill and your just sense of beauty and framing and everything, I think, is in every shot of this film. And I
Thank
just
you.
would really like to congratulate you on that. It's beautiful to see. And so, again, about keeping, this is a very complex, textured story. Did you set it in that time, or how should I say? Because it's based on his real grandfather, however, it has enormous contemporary resonance.
Yeah, yeah.
And,
sadly.
Yes, unfortunately.
Yeah.
And but was this very much behind your force to make the film? Was it that you saw all of this resonance?
Well, you know, when I sort of introduced the film earlier, you know, I sort of just murmured a bit about how history has been written, and a lot of Indigenous history in the world here, you know, everywhere has been written with a lead pencil and an eraser. Yeah. And it's always designed to shine a light and be favourable for basically the colonisers or you know, any form of that kind of, well, you know, the missionaries or, you know. And, you know, as Indigenous filmmakers, we're kind of rebuilding our library at the moment. We're getting our voice back, and the novelists as well, and musicians and songwriters, Indigenous people, artistic across the board. We're starting to actually talk our truth, an oral history that's been passed down, and a different version of history at what we know our history as. And so it's really important to be truthful, because it actually, even though it's fiction in a way, and it's based on a true story, there's actually, we as Indigenous filmmakers, we have to be incredibly succinct and precise, because this is our history, and we don't want to go and, I don't know, fantasize it. You know what I mean? We've all got an opportunity to speak the truth and to have a dialogue, even though it's fiction, so we have to get it right. So you know, the investment in getting it right, you know, is really important to Indigenous filmmakers and artists in general.
Yeah, so you're saying that you don't want to mythologize history in a sense.
No, because it's the first time we're actually allowed to, we're getting to talk about our history. So we want to get it really right about the way it really did happen.
You get it really right.
Yeah, yeah. So, yeah. And it's tormenting, you know what I mean? I don't know, don't go and watch it again.
But it's about altering that point of view.
But it's the truth, that's the problem, it's the truth, you know what I mean? You can't muck around with this stuff, and we can't have the Hollywood ending, because that's not bloody true. Anyway. Yeah. Yeah.
But still, there's power in truth, there's beauty in truth.
Absolutely, yeah.
And it must be told.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Thanks for helping with that.
Cool.
Yeah. I'd like to open it up for questions. I know there's a lot to think about. I'm going to step out of the light, if you don't mind, so I'm able to see people's hands. Yeah. And I'll repeat the questions. There's one on the aisle there. Yeah.
Thank you for the film. I was very skeptical about it at first because I didn't know anything about it. But I do have a question. Why
That was a statement.
Oh, yeah. I think the question's coming. Yeah.
Why did you end the film with not knowing who shot Sam?
I'm just going to repeat it. She asked, why did you end the film with us not knowing who shot Sam?
Because as an audience, you're incredibly intelligent, and whoever the hell you are and how you grew up, you can dictate who shot Sam. And two best friends in the room can have different ideas of who it was. I don't care. I reckon you're right. Whoever you think it is, you're right. Yeah.
Bravo. Yes, here, please.
You know, it's the grassy knoll. Who shot, you know, absolutely.
Go ahead.
I noticed at the end of the film that you said that it was in memory of, and it got cut off, but Andrew...
Kronk. Yeah.
Please tell us who he is and why it's filmed.
So who is the film in memory of, Andrew Kronk?
He's an old friend. He's in the bar. And, you know, a couple of days after we did about a month after we'd finished the film, he died. And he's just an old cowboy who, because all the blokes in the bar are just old cowboy legends from the Central Australia. So we just rounded them all up, you know what I mean? Got them away from their troughs and their hay, and then put them all in the bar. And so we made sure that we had, you know, sort of a respect. So there's a lot of actual pastoralist families in that room playing racist, which is hilarious. So yeah, but he was just a beautiful old man that I've known almost, because I grew up in Alice Springs. So he was just a beautiful old man who I've always loved, and it was funny because he went to wardrobe and he hasn't worn shoes since he left school at the age of 12. You know what I mean? He's never, you know what I mean? So suddenly he's wearing a pair of shoes. He's going, oh, this ain't right. These shoes. And I'm going, you can take them off. And he's going, oh, no, I'm going to be this character. I'm going to keep these shoes on. He hadn't worn shoes for bloody, you know, for 30 years or 40 years.
It's a wonderful tribute to him. I'm sure he would be honored.
Yeah.
Over here.
Okay, so I have two questions. One, has it been released in Australia, and if so, what was the reaction? And number two, did you really think it was necessary to put subtitles?
Here's the question. The first question is, has the film been released in Australia? And if so, how has it been received? And then the second question was about subtitles, but we'll come back to that.
It hasn't been released in Australia. We have a tall poppy syndrome where we need the rest of the world to tell us that something's fantastic, and then, you know.
It's pretty Canadian too.
Yeah. Yeah. Subtitles. Well, how did you go with the subtitles? I'm sure people needed it. Yeah, you didn't because you're Australian. Hey, hey mate, you're Australian. You didn't really need that.
Excuse me.
Fuck.
Oh, sorry. Okay.
There was a great quote in the paper, in one of the papers from when we were screened it in Venice, Australia, the country where you say goodbye by saying fuck off.
Okay, moving on. Okay, that's very good. Yes, back there, white shirt.
Oh, yeah.
The question was about, can you explain your decision to show scenes before they take place in the timeline of the film?
It's sort of investing in character, to try and look at people's, the dreams of their future and the fears of their past. If we're going to play with the flashbacks and we're going to play with people thinking about the past, well, we should play with the future as well. I just found it a really nice dynamic to loosen up characters. There's some very clear protagonist, antagonist worlds happening there, and I just needed to not lighten it, but just give a little bit more depth to these characters, baddies, and so it just became a really, really, really nice tool to try and open the film up and keep us questioning. As an audience, the worst thing we can do is walk into a cinema and know that Batman's going to win. You know what I mean? That's just so sad for me. And I really, when I like films that I'm just questioning. Why are we here? What's going on? So that's the kind of films I make, where I'll throw teasers and herrings and rotten tomatoes, at you, and you'll be going, why, what's going, and I like that about cinema. That's important for me for people to be questioning and asking questions and creating fear, or, you know, the shot of Shanika, the little girl with the blood all over her, you know, it's sort of like, oh my God, something horrible's going to happen, you know what I mean? But just inkling on those sort of things. Are they building the gallows and then suddenly they're building a church? You know, I just find that, I don't know, I just like to question. I like yous to work just as hard as I did when I made it.
There you are. Yes, go ahead.
Those incredible skies that you have through the film, including the rainbow at the end. Have you wait for those today?
You know,
Can I repeat the question? It's a great question. The incredible skies that you have in the film, including the rainbow at the end, did you have to wait for those, or?
we got flooded out on the, you know, the sets got flooded and half washed away, the typical kind of, you know.
What?
Yeah, we had a fair bit of rain, you know, for some strange reason. And then we worked out why we had a whole lot of rain on the film. Because Barney, you know, the old man, not Archie, the other guy, Barney, is a rainmaker. And when Barney gets happy, it rains. Now, Barney's on a film set and he's playing a cowboy, so he's bloody happy. So it's like, oh shit, Barney's
you need to
making
fire
it rain.
Barney.
Yeah. It's like, and then we'd make it sad. We can't do that.
That's
yeah.
right.
Yeah.
So you didn't, but did you wait for those
No,
days?
no. You know, we shot that in 22 days, 3 weeks, basically, the whole film in 22 days.
Boggling.
So we can't wait for nobody. You know what I mean? We can't wait for clouds. We
No.
can't, you know, it's sort of like, okay, it's like, so it just sort of, but something like that there, you know, that sequence at the end with the rainbow and that just happened in front of us, and it's like, okay, let's shoot it. Sam, go and walk over there. It wasn't scripted that way, you know what I mean? So it's like, let's just shoot it anyway, and I'll work out in the edit suite where it goes. Yeah.
Amazing. Yes, go ahead.
Film really grapples with masculinity, what it is to be a man. Was that in the original script of the story, or how did that develop?
That's a great question. He's asking, he feels the film really grapples with masculinity and what it is to be a man. And did you see that in the original script, or did that come out as you developed?
Yeah, no, it was there. It's always been there, that sort of testosterone, testicle-y kind of idea. And, you know, it's a classic genre Western, you know, it's just part and parcel. I'll tell you what the real difficulty was. The women in the film don't really have a voice. But, okay, I recognise that. Everyone recognised that. But in 1929, Australia, in the desert, women didn't have a voice. Now, I could go and fill that film with a lot more women and a lot more voice, but then I'm not truthful to the actual, you know what I mean?
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm actually changing history in a way. And we do have a problem with not enough, you know, female leads in films and directors and producers, and it's a major problem. But I just could not go and fill that film with stuff that's not true to the time. You know what I mean? That's disrespecting the history and disrespecting it in a different way.
Yeah.
It becomes much more tokeny, and that's
Exactly.
wrong. You know?
Yeah, completely understand that. I'm just going to go to the back. I'll come back to you. Yes, right there, please.
Leslie, congrats on an incredible year with this, We Don't Need a Map.
Thank you.
I found it really interesting that the law actually was in Sam's favour in this one, and that doesn't seem to have sat with a lot of what we actually see with Indigenous people in Australia and the law at the moment, particularly things like longevity. Was that deliberate, or was that just because of the way that you were basing this on a true story?
I didn't completely hear
Yeah.
all of that, but I think she's responding. She's saying the law is on the side of Sam in this story.
The law.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
The judge found in Sam's favour.
Yeah.
The judge found in Sam's favor.
Yeah.
Really reflect what we see in contemporary Australia, unfortunately.
Okay.
Okay, so she's saying that this does not reflect what you currently see in contemporary Australia.
Yeah, but it's based on a true story, and that he actually, his name was Willibert Jack, who that actually happened to in real life, and he actually got off, and then he was poisoned with arsenic in flour. You know what I mean? It's kind of, it's part of the dynamic. It's sort of, and there's religion is incredibly hypocritical. Laws are incredibly hypocritical, and they change all the time. So, and they change to suit whoever's in power to create fear or to create, a better foundation for themselves. And that was important that there is light at the end of the tunnel in some way. And the law actually recognised that he was innocent. But really, does that mean anything in that world? Well, it doesn't, because they just shoot him anyway, So that was. Yeah. It's a great dynamic, If he didn't get off and they hung him, it'd be a different film,
Right at the back there, please. Could you tell us a little bit more about the Indigenous actors?
They're awesome.
Yeah, they are that.
Yeah. None of them had acted before. There's another one. None of them had acted before. But when you cast, I have a saying, and it's not really my saying, but I say I have a saying. Yes. There's no such thing as a bad actor. There's just bad directors, because you shouldn't have cast that person into that role in the first place if they can't do it. This is pretty. It's the genesis of that choice is incredibly important. So it's a pretty scary thing, but I always sort of look for the right. When I read a script or I write a script, I have an image that instantly happens when that character is introduced to me in the film. And then when that happens, I have an instant vision of that person, what they look like. And that's what I go for first, because with non-professional actors, it's more about, for me personally, it's not some kind of craft in a way. It's about creating, empowering them and making them feel incredibly special, and then finding in that the character. But it's more about getting rid of all the barriers and all those the fears that they have. And as soon as you get rid of all of that, you can thrust them in front of the camera and shoot the hell out of them.
Capture the essence of them.
Yeah.
Right.
I always look at actors and go, you decided to stand in front of the camera. What's going on in your mind? Why did you look in the mirror and go, I'm going to stand in front of this camera? You know what I mean? It's an interesting dynamic. They're a unique beast, and we love them.
Yes.
Yeah.
We do love them. Yes, on the aisle, though, please.
Beautiful film, so well built, really great, so well done. Thank you so much for that.
Thank you.
And it brought to mind for me that wonderful film from your country that Peter Brooks directed, The Last Wave, that really opened the door to the Aboriginal history of your country. Did that film influence you in your creative world?
She's asking about the film The Last Wave, and has that been influential for you at all?
Yeah, for sure. They all have. You know what I mean? Absolutely. I think that I'm a complete auteur and nothing influences me except my own. But that's a load of bullshit. You know what I mean? Obviously, every you know what I mean. Whether it's either subliminally or I've completely plagiarized other people's scenes. It happens, yeah, absolutely. There's a wonderful, yeah, totally. Last Wave, Jetta. There's all sorts of stuff. There's Tracy Moffat, the projection, how they go behind the projector, the screen. That's classic Tracy Moffat kind of imagery. From Night Cries or Bedeviled, two amazing films by Tracy. There's all these references. There's when Sam's asleep there. And the guy on the horse, right at the beginning. There's an amazing film called Night of the Hunter, and there's this old grandma sitting there with a shotgun, and there's Robert Mitchum's out there singing "Swing Low." You know what I mean? There's a reference to that there. There's all sorts of crazy things in the film. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I deeply regret that we have run out of time.
Damn.
I know. Congratulations on a wonderful film. Thank you so much for giving so much of yourself. No. Welcome him and congratulate him. Thank you.
Hey. you. Thank you. Yeah.